Hey folks, Mal the Train Tutor back in the studio and back with another video for you. And this one's a bit special because we're back in the Let's Make playlist and we're starting a new series, Volcanic Terrain. Yes, your volcanic rock, your fissures, your lava pools, your volcanoes, sulfur pools and everything else. We're going to be tackling them in this series. Now, with those of you who don't know what the Let's Makes are about, Let's Makes are where I take an iconic piece of scenery and I take you through step by step, making a simple or a couple of simple pieces of it to show you the key pieces and the key techniques to creating awesome looking terrain for you to take and run with. And so that's what we're going to be tackling in this video. And in this video, we're going to be doing that sort of porous, explosive sort of volcanic rock. So it's cracking on time. Now, to make our volcanic rocks, we're going to be using foam, yeah? But not this sort of foam. This sort of foam, yeah? Squidgy upholstery foam. This is a big chunk of it. Now, what I've done is, just for convenience, as you can see, I've been ripping away, yeah? And I've got us a chunk here, okay, for us to work on for this video. Now, there's two types of upholstery foam. There's this posh stuff, which is the really nice, clean posh stuff. And then you get this sort of stuff, which is the harder wearing. And this is upholstery foam. This is called composite chip foam. Okay? Composite chip upholstery foam. Now, it's difficult to get large chunks of this. So I tend to use this for smaller pieces because it's actually better for the sort of rock effect that we're after. Okay? You can already see it. But because we want larger rocks, we've got two options. I could build a substructure and glue all these pieces onto it, yeah, individually, and then bring it together. But I'm going to show you how to do it out of this. Now, got myself a piece here, yeah, and what I want to do, first things I want to do is, I only really want a flat bottom. Yeah, this is obviously sort of from the edge of it, as the top and the bottom there. So what we need to do is first take this off. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm going to be saving all my foam because it can become smaller rocks. It can become, get blended up, become clump foliage. Yeah, and if you don't know about that, there's a video in the hills, trees and or is it in the Back to Basics? I'll throw a link up to it now. Anyway, what we're doing is, I need to get this so it looks slightly right. And like I say, don't worry about how much you're taking off. Yeah. The main thing is you get the flat edges from all the way around. Once you've done that, yeah, have a look at it and just decide, right, how does it need shaping now? Yeah. Just take off anything that doesn't looks a bit weird with its shape. Any overhangs, any ridge lines, any long ridge lines that clear. So with that, you can see there's a clear tear. So if I break that tear up a bit, by taking little bits out of it, yeah, sort of disappears. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. Take that down a bit. Yeah. And I've got the rough shape that I want there. Yeah. There you go. Now, next thing I want to do is I just want to pluck it. Yeah. So all I'm doing is I'm trying to replicate this texture as best I can. Yeah, so any sort of smooth areas like this, I'm coming along, plucking random bits out of it. Once again, saving the foam, breaking up any ridge lines a bit so they're not so obvious. And at the same time, getting some good texture for when we dry brush this. So this is the basic process, and it is very much experimental. Yeah, i.e. you just got to give it a go, see what works. See what you're happy with. And sometimes it can help just to put it down, leave it to the side, and then come back and sort of pick at it after you've had a breather. So, I've got my rough shape there, and it's as easy as that. And I've got a nice flat bottom for fixing it down. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put together a few more pieces of this. I'll be back shortly. So we've got our foam done and it's looking good. I've done a few pieces, enough for say 3 scatter pieces, which should be enough for this. Okay, now if you noticed in the time lapse, yeah, I did use a pair of scissors just for cutting out large chunks, but it is always better to avoid scissors for the general shaping because they're too clean. They don't look raggedy enough. Yeah, so the more you can generally tear and pluck, the better. Now, we've got some large pieces here, I've got some small pieces, and I've got a ton of foam if we need to make up any more. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of like get the bases ready. Now, what I've got here is I've just got some 3mm MDF. Okay, it's laminated on one side, which will help it be sturdy, and the 3mm will give it a nice low profile. So we're going to put that down there, and we say, all right, let's go for that one there. Yeah, and then marker pen, just go around it roughly so we know where that goes. Yeah, and then with that in place, what we want to do is just 1/2 inch to 1 inch around. Yeah, that was 1/2 inch to 1 inch around. And so we're just going to draw that. And that's going to give us our base for that one to go on. And the marker basically shows us that we know that this bit of foam goes here. I could go like 1 and write 1 there, make it a bit easier. You know what I mean? But I don't really need to, as long as I draw around them. Now my next job is I need to put these pieces together. Yeah, what I'm going to do is probably with this one, combine it with something like that. Combine it, because the best thing about this foam stuff is, yeah, it can be pushed together. Now we're going to be hot gluing this onto these pieces, so we can sort of make more interesting pieces by hot gluing more individual ones on. So if we go for that one, say there, yeah, let's draw around that one first. Then bring this one in, give it a little push, hold that there. Yeah, because you see where it's sort of gone over the line. We know that's going to be compressed, so that's okay. I'll draw around it so I know I'm going over the line, sort of. And then when this, I can just come round. Yeah, ooh, a bit wide there. It's only rough, I can do it properly. And then finally, yeah, we'll do one for this one. So I'll get this done, and then the next thing is to cut these out, give them a little bit of a bevel, yeah, and then just to simply hot glue these onto these. I'll be back when it's done. So that's our bases done, and all our rock clumps are fixed down to our bases. Now when I did it, what you'll notice is I put PVA in the middle and hot glue around the edge. The hot glue is to fix the actual rock clusters onto the base, yeah, but the PVA smooths out underneath and provides a better fix. The reason why I've added the hot glue and not just PVA'd them and left them is because the next stage is going to involve a little bit of water. That could reactivate them and they could detach. So using a bit of hot glue, it's waterproof. I haven't got that worries. So you may have noticed, yeah, that, that my rocks, they're rocky looking. Yeah, and I've done quite a bit of plucking at him. I've done that much plucking at him that I'm almost a professional plucker. Yeah, but you'll also notice they're quite soft. Yeah, now that's a bit of a problem. But that's okay, because I've got some cream here that I can harden it up with. Yeah, okay, what have I got here? Well, I've got some Artex, yeah? It's a ceiling stucco, but you can use, you can use something like standard wall stucco or filler in the UK. And what we're going to do is, and this is going to take a bit messy, we're going to get water, and we're going to rub water over our cloth, like that. Yeah, and then we're going to get our Artex. I'm going to start rubbing it in, giving it a good rub. Yeah, and if I rub it in a bit and get it into it, yeah, and I bring it up, you can immediately see the texture coming out. Yeah. Now what will happen is this is going to soak in, and then when it dries, it's going to go hard. Yeah. And then we can paint it and that sort of stuff. So my next job, dead simple. I've just got to get this stuff. Yeah. And just get it into my foam. Yeah. And layer it up so it goes nice and hard. And when I'm doing it, the main thing I'm looking for is that I get a nice smooth coverage. What I don't want is like patches like that. So what I don't want is where you've got an extra thick bit and it goes smooth. So what we want to do is just make sure we rub all that around. Yeah, and now you can see why I put the hot glue on. Yeah, it makes this a lot easier. So I'm going to crack on with this. I'll come back when it's done. So our rocks have hardened up and it's time to start the texturing. But before we do, very quickly, let me show you these. Yeah. Nice and firm. You can put a bit more on, make them a little bit harder. This one's got a little bit less on. And you can hear just a slight difference, but they're good enough to paint. Now, one thing I do want to point out is, do you remember when I said you've got to rub it in, otherwise you'll end up with like smooth clumps that you get rid of this porous look. Now, if I bring it up real close, you can sort of see, do you see where it's pooled just in a couple of places? Okay, now that's no issues on such a small effect, but what you do want to do is make sure that you don't have that over a large effect, which is why you need to use that water and sort of work it into the piece. Now, these two have done well, and you can, if you notice, the sharp-eyed of you will notice there's a couple of things. Yeah, I've got some crystals on there as well. I'm just doing those right now. Now, what I'm doing is, I've got these. Yeah, now these are cast out of a casting powder and a silicone mould from Hearst Arts. Yeah, I'm just adding them to add a little bit of detail. Now, don't worry about crystals. Yeah, I've got another Let's Make video coming up on loads of different ways of crystals. I'm just using these because they're easy right now, so don't panic. But this is what we're working on right now. And what I'm doing with them is dead simple. Yeah, I've done these couple of pieces. Yeah, so if I bring them up, and you can see my little crystal clusters around the side. Yeah, and what I'm doing is dead simple. Yeah, I've got a crystal. I'm getting a bit of sandpaper because it's casting powder, so you can sand it. I'm putting a bit of a bevel on the bottom. Yeah, so it stands sort of at an angle. Yeah, and then all I'm doing is I'm coming in, picking a spot. Which one's it's this one I'm working on. Ugh! Yeah, putting a bit of hot glue in. And then taking my crystal, put it in. And I like to clump them sort of two together. Should have shaped the bottom on this one first. Yeah, just push. I need a bit more hot glue. I'm just popping them in like that. Yeah. Once they're set, we can paint them up. Now, the next thing I need to do with this is actually texture it. Okay, now for texturing it, you don't need that much of a texture on the ground. Okay, and what I've got here is I've got some thinned down PVA. Okay, it's about 1 part PVA, 4 parts water, so it's nice and thin. Yeah, and all I'm going to do is get a decent brush. That one will do. Yeah, wet it. And for my aggregates, I've got that, which is just a basic mix of sharp stone. Yeah, and I'm only going to be putting the little bits down. Now, the reason why I've got really thinned out PVA on this one is because it's enough that when I sprinkle my aggregates on, it will soak completely through and seal itself as well as fixing itself, which means I don't have to come back and reseal it. Now, with your watered down PVA, you can actually brush this onto the rocks as well. Yeah, and what that'll do is it'll help seal them, but you don't really need to. What I'm going to be doing is I'll put a bit of PVA in my base coat and do it that way. So keep going. All the way around, Bows. Come on, you've almost done it. Almost done it. Thrilling behind the scenes content. Yeah, almost got it all. And then when it comes to actually applying your aggregates, yeah, and I should have put a cloth down for this, but I'm going to do it over the top. Yeah, because I haven't got the cloth. I'll put some tissue paper, I'll put some paper down soon. Yeah, and all I'm doing is just quickly giving it a bit of a sprinkle and getting a bit of a texture to it. Now, when you do this, you'll notice you get little bits like that, white bit there. That's where you haven't actually got any PVA. Yeah, just wipe it a bit, give it a sprinkle, it'll be fine. Sprinkle when you tinkle. Best not. Yeah. Very quickly just, yeah, I need a bit more there. And that is done. Now you see by sprinkling it, oh, you can see a massive bit I've missed there. See, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. That's why I'm so slow at making terrain. I don't like missing bits. Yeah, but there. Now, as you can see, it's gone dark all the way through, which means that PVA is soaked all the way through and it's going to seal it all the way through, which means I don't have to worry about coming back with a sealing coat. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack on I'm going to do the last of my crystals on this one. In fact, I think we're done on that one. Maybe one there. Yeah, and then we're going to get these textured up, and I'll come back once they're done. So that's the texturing on the rocks done. Yeah, it's come out perfect. Yeah. Next stage, we've got to base coat them. Now for base coating them up, I've gone slightly different. I haven't just used my standard house paint. I've gone with some artistic black acrylic, just some cheap stuff, a little bit of grey, and a bit of PVC. PVC? Hey up, we're getting a bit spicy. A little bit of PVA. Right, next job, all we've got to do is just paint these up. Now the reason I've gone for a really thick coat and added a bit of PVA is because with these still being a little bit soft, yeah, this is going to help harden it up. But more importantly, it's going to give it a good fill. Yeah, now, this is, with it being thick, it is a long, and you've just basically got to get it in there. If you've got an airbrush, this works really well. Yeah, you can also spray prime them, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but in the meantime, I'm just going to go old school. Just work this in. Now, it's important you don't go over areas that you've already done, because when you work this in, as it soaks, it'll just soften it up slightly. It'll re-harden when it dries, but if it goes soft, what you don't want to be doing is reworking an area too much, you know what I mean, and dislodging stuff. So, I'm just going to crack on with this, work my way around it. Once it's done, I'll bring it back. So, that's them base coated and sealed, and they're perfectly beautiful. Yeah, all ready for lightening up and giving a rock texture. Now, obviously I've got to do the crystals. We'll do those after I've done after I've done the basic highlighting. But what we're going to do is basically just put a grey effect, but not a very light one like normal rocks. This is going to be very subtle. So what I've done is I've got a little bit of my standard grey. Yeah, added a bit of black into it and just darkened it up. I've got an inch wide brush. Yeah, I'm taking the excess off on some cardboard because that'll soak the moisture out of the paint. And I'm coming along and I'm starting to layer it up. Yeah, it will take a while for you to sort of see the effects on this because we are going in such subtle shades, because we don't want a major harsh highlight. Yeah, and what I'm going to do is dead simple. I'm just going to add some grey to this. So I'm going to do these. I'll keep adding a little grey, and just till I get it to the stage where I feel like it's, yeah, that's where I want it. So, cracking on time. So, as you can see there, with the dry brushing done, they're all done. And they're looking lovely. The dry brushing has brought out that sort of porous look on them. Yeah, and I've also done the crystals, which are quite nice, to be perfectly honest. Now, the crystals were dead easy. I just used a bit of angel green and green skin. Just gave them an overbrush of angel green, yeah, leaving a little bit of darkness near the bottom. And then just did some edge highlighting with some neat, what you call it, green skin. Yeah, and they've come out perfect. And it really is important that you really do include some elements on this that aren't just grey and black, or they become lumps of grey and black on the table. So little bits of crystals, fissures, lava, little things like that. Even old waste material, oil drums, mechanical stuff you can put down as waste, they all work. It's about bringing the piece to life. Now remember, we're just going to quickly run through, as always with the Let's Makes, the core techniques for pulling this together. Now the main thing to remember is, yeah, achieving this sort of look is about using the foam, okay? You can't really get this look with our normal sort of polystyrene foam, whether it be EPS or XPS. You really need this upholstery foam. Now there are two different types, as I said, and we've made these out of these. Very quickly, this is a piece, yeah, it's considerably lighter than the others, yeah, but follows exactly the same sort of instructions, and this was made by compiling clumps of chip composite foam, okay, and you can buy sheets of this for a couple of quid, yeah, on Amazon. So it's just called recycled chip foam or composite chip foam, but you can see that this has a much more sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? This is more porous and that sort of thing. This is more craggy, more volcanic and erupty rock. But both these techniques were achieved with the sort of techniques. Both these looks were achieved with the same techniques. Right, so let's run through the core things. Now, when you watch, when you're doing these pieces, it's they get their toughness from what you put in them. So putting in like forcing in that filler works really well. If they're going to be taking a lot of hammer, you go into a club or something like that, put the filler in, put extra in, keep forcing it in, yeah, make it a lot more tougher, and you'll end up with something that's really tough like this one. Yeah, this one had a lot of filler in it. Now, the other thing to remember is whenever you paint it, whether you glue it, seal it, and you apply water to that, it's going to reactivate, yeah, and get soft. So you really do need to leave time between laying on something wet and leaving it to completely dry. Otherwise, it's going to break, yeah, the little bits can break off. Secondly, when you're working with foam, little bits will break off. It's always handy to have a little bit of black just floating around or a little dark wash just for a bit of patch repair, because it can happen, because you're talking about foam with lots of little bits, and you can have a little bit sticking out that, you know, gets lost in a dry brushing stage, exposing a bit of foam. You need to go back and touch it in. Now, the other thing with a porous technique is you can end up with like little odd spots where it hasn't gone straight in, you know, tiny little bits like white spots. When you're doing your base coat, after your base coat is set, you can go in with a really watered down wash, and that'll soak in and just clear those up from the start. If it's something that sort of happened, because what can happen is when you apply the paint to it, as the paint dries, it shrinks a little and it can open up little cracks. If it's that case, just a little bit, touch it up and you'll be fine. And then finally, just remember, get rid of all irregular areas. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it looks like, yeah, just don't make it look regular. So get rid of all your clean cuts, all that sort of stuff. And then ultimately, you need a few little spot things, yeah, to bring them out. And that is basically how you do, how you actually do volcanic rock terrain. Right. So folks, I hope you found it useful. It's been great doing these videos and it's put a massive smile on my face. And there's plenty more coming, trust me. Yeah, things are rolling. Now, as always, at the end of the video, I ask for your support. That's because I can't make these videos without you. Yeah, you are essentially my employers and I rely on you to basically pay the bills, keep the lights on, the cameras rolling, and me making these sort of tutorials for you. So if you have made it to the end of the video, it means you are one of the special ones that really appreciate what I do here. And so I'm reaching out specifically to you guys to help keep me do it. Now, there's links down below and there's links on screen, yeah. I genuinely could do with your support. I'm rebuilding the channel. I've lost a lot of patrons and I need to get them back. So if you jumped off Patreon because I haven't been around, now is the time to jump back on. Yeah, if you've not been on Patreon before, then you can jump on. Just pledge $1, back one video a month. Yeah, you don't have to back 3 or 4, just $1. Yeah. And it all together, you all help keep me in here. And remember, it's about $4 or $5 for a Starbucks, a coffee now. So, you know, a couple of dollars to keep me making these videos for you isn't much to ask. And if you're not into the monthly thing, there's a link down below to PayPal where you can just send a one-off, or to my Amazon wish list where you can pick something up useful that I can use for the studio and for making more content. So guys, that bit's over to you. Genuinely, hope you've watched and enjoyed the video. Look forward to your support. In the meantime, I'll see you soon with more terrain. All the best, yeah? Ta-da!